Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you on Monday, the start of another week. We are the penultimate week really before the Premier League season begins once again. A week on Friday, not long to go now. This is also my last week of work until I'm off for a 2-week holiday, so I miss the start of the Premier League season. Not ideal, obviously, I've said this before, but school holidays got to go when my kids are off school, so it has to be when the football season starts, unfortunately. So I'm going to remind you on pretty much every episode or every video that I do this week, because I know when I do go away and suddenly you're not going to see videos from me, I get loads of comments saying, where are you, where are you, where are you? So that's where I am. I'm going to be on holiday. So early warning, and sorry to disappoint that I'm not going to be giving you some videos in the build-up to the Premier League season. I'm hoping it'll be a disappointment anyway. Some of you might be happy, but hopefully it's a bit of a disappointment. But I will be back. I can't even remember what game it's going to be now. I think it's after the basically the second weekend of the season, so I'll be back after that. But anyway, lots to talk about in today's video, because Edu's been speaking, given a whole host of interviews at the end of Arsenal's pre-season tour. They are now back in the UK after that tour to the United States, which I spoke about yesterday. What a fantastic tour that was for Arsenal. Couldn't really have gone any better. And Edu has been speaking, like I said, to lots of media over there, to journalists who went to Sky Sports, giving lots of interviews out and some really interesting things to say. If you haven't seen them yet, then head over. James McNicholas over at The Athletic's done a really good sort of piece with the quotes from Edu, and then kind of detailing, giving his own opinion on what exactly Edu had to say and what he had to read. So if you haven't seen that yet, I retweeted it earlier on in today. Head over to James, which you know more as Gunner Blog, obviously, and read that interview, because it's absolutely well worth your time. Really, really good piece. I picked out a few of the quotes here that I wanted to talk about that I thought were quite interesting. I mean, first of all, we'll start with what Edu had to say about the transfer window. This was Sky Sports, and they asked him, is any more that Arsenal going to do in terms of incomings this window? And he said, I think we have to be prepared for every situation. We still feel the transfer window is open. The most important thing is to be prepared for everything, every scenario, because opportunities can happen. Clubs can approach us. Players probably want to go out on loan, so there's still lots to do. But again, being prepared for me is the most important thing. And for sure, we are very much prepared for almost everything. So that's what he had to say about the transfer window. He went on, there was further comments, and I think there was a question about, what would your message to Arsenal fans be ahead of the final weeks of the transfer window, and he said that they'll work as hard as they possibly can to try and do something for them. Now, I've spoken in previous videos, I don't think Arsenal are done just yet in the transfer window in terms of incomings. If the right player is there and they can get a fee that sort of suits them, then I think they will try and get that a deal done. Whether it happens, I can't say that for now, if they'll actually get anyone else in, but I think they will certainly try if the player that they believe is the one they've identified is available. So we'll wait and see, but certainly from what Edu says there, he's not closed the door on new signings. Mikel hasn't closed the door on new signings when he's had to speak. But everyone at the moment that you speak to about Arsenal, when you listen to Edu in these interviews, when you listen to Mikel in his interviews, and when you speak to people sort of around the club, it kind of feels at the moment that the priority or the focus right now is trying to get players out of the club, which is absolutely essential, and I've spoken about that in previous videos. You need to move players on now. That's essential, and I'll speak a little bit about that later on in today's video. Other things Edu was asked. He was asked about what his target is for this season. He said, with all my respect, even being realistic, I cannot think anything less than winning things. So, big targets there. He wants silverware at the end of the season, which, we all know it's not easy to win silverware at any given time, especially in England with the quality of the sides at the very, very top of the game over here. But, Arsenal need to try and win things. Europa League, absolutely winnable target for them this season, no doubt about that. That's something you kind of feel like Arsenal got a bit of unfinished business when it comes to the Europa League. They've been so close in recent years, not got over the line. Got another chance to do it this year. And that is absolutely something that they can realistically target of winning. Lots of other stuff talked about in this Edu interview. There was really interesting quotes given to James in The Athletic about, the fact that Arsenal have been sort of paying players off to leave, and, what does that kind of represent? Is that good business or is it not? Why are you having to do that? And he said some really good things here about the sort of situation Arsenal found themselves in with the squad and the age of the squad, and how difficult it's been to try and reverse that trend in the last couple of years. He says, if a guy is performing and has a big salary, that's not a problem. When the player is 26 plus and big salary and he's not performing, he's killing you. You don't have a valuation to sell the player. The player is comfortable. Arsenal, London, beautiful. Everything is fantastic and a good salary. How many players with that kind of characteristics did we have in the past? 80% of the squad. Try to avoid one more year with a problem in the dressing room. Take it out, even if you have to pay, because this guy is sometimes blocking someone. He went on, he was talking about how actually getting rid of players, yes, when you kind of look at it right now, he said, you're looking at it, you're having to pay players, but he was looking at it more as an investment because it's getting that player out of the team, it's getting the wages out early, and it's more importantly getting the player out of the squad, and that's blocking someone else's potential development. So I thought that was a really interesting point in the interview. Another point, Bukayo Saka's contract was discussed. If you haven't seen that yet, I mean, we saw what Mikel Arteta had to say recently in the US tour that, Arsenal are trying, and, that's an open secret. Arsenal are absolutely trying. It's one of their priorities this summer to get Saka tied down to a new contract. It hasn't happened yet. The talks are going on, haven't led to a contract being signed, but Arsenal are very, very hopeful that they can get Bukayo Saka. That's what Mikel had to say. Edu as well has said, look, the conversations are good, very good. Everyone is happy. He was asked about why the delay, why hasn't it been done yet, and he said it's normal. We're going to sit and put all the expectations in the right place, our expectations and his family, his agent's expectations, put everything together. The main thing is how he feels comfortable with us, and he's happy, we're happy, so it's just sit down and find a solution. So certainly the noises coming out from Arsenal, they're putting out to the media, is that they're comfortable with the situation and they think they can get Bukayo Saka to sign, and it would be absolutely huge. Forget all the incomings this summer. Yes, there have been some encouraging ones, some promising ones, some exciting ones. Arsenal need to get Bukayo Saka tied down to a new contract. It's absolutely essential. It'll be the biggest signing they make this summer is getting Bukayo Saka tied down to a new contract, because you're not only just getting yourself a good player, but you're protecting his value, and Arsenal absolutely need to do that, because if the worst comes to the worst one day and Arsenal have to sell Bukayo Saka, which obviously we hope doesn't happen, but look, this is football, it's business, and it might have to come to that stage at some point. It's very hard if you're not winning the top trophies, and Arsenal aren't at the moment. They might, you never know, but they aren't at the moment. Then it's very hard to keep the very, very top talent, because at some point they're going to want to go. We've seen it with the likes of Jack Grealish, Aston Villa and Manchester City, that sort of thing. And if Arsenal ever find themselves in that situation where they have to sign Bukayo Saka, you don't want to be selling him when he's got a year left on his contract. You want to be selling him when he's got 3 years left on his contract, 4 years left on his contract. It just is good business. It protects his value, and it means that although you'll have the massive disappointment of losing Bukayo, which obviously we hope never happens, but if it does, at least you've got the kind of cushions the blow that you're going to make 100 million, 150 million out of him, not just 40 million or something like that. So it's absolutely essential. The very top of the priority list has to be for Arsenal getting Bukayo Saka's contract sorted sooner rather than later. It can't be allowed to drag on until next summer, when suddenly he's just got 1 year left. Arsenal are in no position of power, and they're suddenly facing a really, really difficult situation with one of their star players. But hopefully that is all sorted. Hopefully these talks that can find a relatively swift solution soon, and Bukayo Saka will soon be sitting in front of Stuart MacFarlane's camera, signing with his pen, signing that contract, and Arsenal are celebrating another long-term contract for Bukayo like they did with Emil Smith-Rowe last year. And let's not forget Gabriel Martinelli as well, because he's in a very similar situation. Arsenal need to get his contract sorted as well. So there's loads and loads. I literally just pulled out 4 little quotes there from Edu's interviews that he's done with everyone. So if you haven't read them yet, you haven't watched them yet, then go and do it. Go and find him on Sky Sports and watch his interview. Go to Haters TV, watch that interview. Go to the Gunner blog and read his interview at The Athletic. Football London, Kai's done it. Basically all the people who are out in the States, lucky enough to go out in the States, have had a good chat with Edu, and well worth a read, because we don't get to see and hear too much from Edu, but when he does speak, I thought he came across really well, and I always think he comes across really well. I've always been quite sceptical of Edu when he first arrived, and I thought he did very, very well last transfer window, and I liked the fact that he was quite ruthless and getting rid of players, and even if it was paying players to leave, I quite liked the fact he was being ruthless, which Arsenal haven't done really. But I still was a little bit sceptical about him and his ability, and I can't say I'm absolutely, he's sold on him right now, but I do think whenever you hear him speak, you watch him do these videos, I think he's very, very impressive, and he comes across pretty well, and I thought he did in these interviews as well, so go and have a read about them. Quickly now on to the Kroenkes. Mikel had some really good comments to say about the Kroenkes yesterday, and I spoke about it on yesterday's video. I put those quotes out, and it's just an interesting subject because it's the relationship between Arsenal fans and the Kroenkes. Let's face it, it's been pretty rubbish since they came on board, and quite rightly so as well, because the Kroenkes have given Arsenal fans absolutely no reason to trust them whatsoever since they've come on board, especially in the early days when they didn't spend too much money, or weren't willing to spend too much of the club's money. Then they did loosen the purse strings, no doubt about that. We saw it towards the end of Arsene Wenger, and then we had the whole Super League debacle. We've had Arsenal finishing poorly under their stewardship, 2 8th place finishes right now. Yes, you can blame Mikel for that, you can blame the players, but ultimately the Kroenkes are the owners, and they're always going to get grief as well for it. Like I said, the Super League debacle, which was just a joke, and so it's been difficult to really trust them. But you have to say the last 2 years, it's a struggle to really fault the ownership at Arsenal in the last couple of years in terms of what they've done and the money that they've allowed to be spent. Whether it's their own money, that's another thing, and quite rightly still questions are asked about that. Where has this money come from? Is it actually them putting their own hands into their pocket and saying this is our money to spend it, or is it more to do with the loans that they've taken out, and are they putting more debt on the club to sort of finance this spending? But they have found a way to back Mikel and to totally revamp this squad, which needed to be done, and they did it last summer. Arsenal were the biggest spenders last summer, and they've done it again this summer. Right now they're the biggest spenders along with Tottenham. And you can tell that Mikel Arteta is very, very happy with their leadership, and you could tell that by what he had to say yesterday. And Edu, in one of his interviews, he was speaking about them as well, and was asked about the spending, and does that show that the Kroenkes are really sort of backing Arsenal? He said not only with the spending, because it's unfair to link the owners just with the spending. They are very much important, and it's sometimes unfair if people have some doubts about our owners. They are really engaged, they are really supportive, and they're really present in the club, which makes us feel really comfortable. I think when he's talking about that as well, you're talking more about Josh Kroenke than you are Stan Kroenke, because yes, Stan's the big guy, the guy with all the money, but Josh is the one who's really on board when it comes to Arsenal and how it all operates. And it's for the first time, I think, since they've really come on board. And I suppose you have to, when you sort of look at their ownership, you kind of have to break it down into when they've become 100% owners, and that's only been fairly recently, once they won the power battle with Usmanov. And since they then were 100% owners, we've certainly seen them invest a lot heavier than they had done before. So maybe that's what was stopping them in the past. But certainly since then, I think, yes, certainly Arsenal have made some very bad decisions. And like I said, ultimately the Kroenkes have to take a lot of responsibility for that because they are the owners. But when you break it down in the last couple of years, you have to say, I think that they couldn't really have. They've certainly given Arsenal the tools to try and improve and to totally revamp this squad, which maybe a lot of owners wouldn't have done in the situation that they were in. And if they weren't, maybe they would have. I think one of the things that we've always criticised the Kroenkes for is that they've not been present enough, they've not been hands-on enough, and it feels like recently they have been, and it certainly feels like Josh has been. And he has 100% got a really good relationship with Mikel Arteta, and he's very, very close with how everything's working, and hopefully it all leads to Arsenal having a very good season this season. If it doesn't, then 100% the Kroenke out chance is going to happen again, and there's going to be a lot of anger at Kroenkes because there's still an awful lot of mistrust when it comes to them and the Arsenal supporters. Nothing has really repaired the bridge. The bridges that have been burnt since the Kroenkes came on. But I think for now, going into this new season, I'm probably feeling more happy, more satisfied with their ownership than I have done pretty much since they've been at the club. And I think that's saying something. And I mean, let me know what you guys think. Are you with me on that? Do you feel a little bit? Do you trust them a little bit more now than you have done in the past, or is it still exactly the same? I think it's a really interesting debate, basically, the Kroenkes at the moment, and ultimately they're gonna live and die by results as well. And if results go well this season, I'm sure everyone will be happy with them. If results nosedive again and Arsenal are in a really difficult position fairly early on in the season, that everyone's going to be unhappy with them. But just for me, I'm interested to know what you guys think, exactly where you are right now with your relationship with the Kroenkes and how you feel about them. So please do let me know in the comments below. Okay, quickly before we go at the end of this video, just a little bit on some sort of transfer latest. Like I said, at the moment, it feels like that the priority, that the focus right now is just trying to trim the squad. Mikel spoke very voicefully about it during his press interviews during the USA tour, that he knows that they need to start getting players out of the squad. It's really, really important. As I said previously, that it's just as important as incomings is getting players out, because the last thing Mikel Arteta wants is a lot of unhappy, demotivated players around the training ground day in, day out. They need to get out and play. They need to start getting minutes under the belt, and they just need to get away from Arsenal, because ultimately unhappy players can drag a squad down, and Arteta doesn't want that at all. So it's about moving players on, and I think we're going to see more and more of that in the coming weeks. Well, so far the transfer window's been dominated by incomings. I think now we're going to sort of move to outgoings being very, very important. Nuno, Tavares, for example, in Atlanta, if Arsenal can agree, get something done with them in the talks that are going on right now in terms of a potential loan deal for the season. Whether there's any sort of agreement to buy in that at the end of it, I'm not quite sure at the moment, but it's certainly something that is being discussed. And other clubs have been interested in Tavares. There's been interest from England. Marseille was certainly interested, but right now it feels like Atlanta's the closest one to potentially happening. I think that'd be a good move for Tavares. I think any move would be a good move for Tavares at the moment. He needs to play. He's got the attributes to be a very, very good defender. He struggled a little bit towards the end of last season. There's no doubt about that. He looked a little bit out of his depth. So for him to go away, the arrival of Zinchenko has allowed him to do that. He can go away. He can play regularly in a top league, improve, and then Arsenal can make a decision on him next summer. Bernd Leno as well, absolutely essential that he goes out the door now. Whether you think he should or not is certainly, there's a debate in that, because what we've seen from Matt Turner early on doesn't exactly fill you with confidence that he's at the standard of Bernd Leno, but you've got to give him a little bit of time, I suppose, to sort of settle and adjust, and it's never easy for a goalkeeper to come in, any player to come in and hit the ground running. So we'll wait and see in terms of that, but Bernd Leno and Fulham, it's been going on for such a long time. Nothing's happened yet. Nothing's been agreed, but it feels like that might be beginning to progress between Arsenal and Fulham, and the talks going on with Bernd Leno. Simon Collins over at the Standard wrote a story today saying that Arsenal are willing to lower their price a little bit on him and get a deal done for between the clubs. And we've spoken about it before on these videos, that it just feels like a good move for Leno. He stays in London. Him and his wife are here. They're settled here. They don't really want to go, and so move to Fulham, nice place to play football. It just feels right and feels good for Bernd Leno. So we'll see if those talks with Fulham come to some sort of successful conclusion at some point this week, but we'll see how that goes. Let me know what you guys think about that. Who should leave? Do you want Leno to stay? Do you think he should stay, or do you think it's time for him to move on? Anything you agree with, disagree with in these videos, let me know, as always, in the comments below. That's it from me. Everyone have a very good day. Enjoy the start of your week, and I'll speak to you soon.